A story. 1. Discuss. Have you ever been in an embarrassing situation? What happened? How did you feel?
Oh, absolutely. Let me tell you about something that happened to me a few years ago that still makes me cringe when I think about it. I was invited to a formal dinner party at my boss's house, quite a posh affair with important clients attending. I wanted to make a good impression, so I dressed up in my finest clothes and even practiced some polite conversation topics on the way there. Everything was going rather well until the dessert course. The hostess brought out these beautiful little chocolate puddings with raspberry sauce. As I took my first spoonful, I thought I'd be clever and compliment her cooking. "These are absolutely delicious," I announced enthusiastically to the whole table. "They remind me of the ones my grandmother used to make. Hers were legendary." The room went suddenly quiet. My boss's wife looked at me with a strange expression and said, "But dear, these are store-bought. I'm not much of a baker, I'm afraid." I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. My face turned the color of the raspberry sauce, and I started stammering some nonsense about how store-bought can be wonderful too, which only made things worse. For the rest of the evening, I couldn't meet anyone's eye. The lesson I learned? Sometimes the best compliment is a simple, "This is lovely," rather than creating an elaborate story. Oh, and perhaps check whose cooking you're praising before you compare it to your grandmother's. My boss still brings it up at office parties, laughing, but I still go red every single time. Have you ever had a moment where your mouth ran away with you? 2. Focus on task completion, style, and organization. Read the rubric and the story below. Then answer the questions 1 to 5. The English club of your school or college has organized a short story competition, and you have decided to enter. The competition rules say that the story must end with the following words. Looking back, I can now say it was very funny, but at the time I was so embarrassed. Last year, I went to Ecuador on holiday. Since Ecuador is well known for its fine chocolate, I decided to buy some for my dad. Boy, was that a mistake. When I got to Quito Airport, I went straight to a shop that had all kinds of chocolates. There was dark chocolate, white chocolate, even chocolate in the shape of objects. My dad collects antique pistols, so when I found a chocolate bar in the shape of a gun, I thought, this is the perfect gift. I put the gun in my bag and went through security control. As the men were screening my bag, they seemed to be anxious and started making phone calls. Then a police officer appeared and said, "Will you please follow me, sir?" Suddenly, I remembered the gun. After I had taken the chocolate out of my bag and showed them what it really was, they laughed and apologized for the misunderstanding. Looking back, I can now say it was very funny, but at the time I was so embarrassed. Why was the writer embarrassed? Do you think the situation was funny? Has the writer changed the prompt sentence used at the end of the story? In which paragraph does the writer mention where and when the story took place? Does the writer use formal or informal language? What tenses does the writer mainly use in the story? 4. Writing task. A. Read the rubric below and complete the outline for the story. An international travel magazine is organizing a short story competition, and you have decided to take part. The competition rules say that the story must end with the following words: "It was a holiday I will never forget." Introduction. When did you go on the holiday? Where did you go? Who did you go with? How did you feel at the time? Main part. What were you expecting the holiday to be like? What was it like, or what happened? What did you and the others do? How did you and the others feel? Conclusion. What was the outcome of the events? How did you and the others feel at the time? How do you and the others feel about the events now? When writing a story, remember that you should try to keep the plot of the story fairly simple. The story should continue from or end with the prompt sentence. The story should be organized in paragraphs, have an interesting introduction, and an appropriate ending. You should use informal or consistently neutral language. You should use past, narrative tenses. You should use linking words to indicate the sequence of events, chronological order, etc. You should try to create an appropriate atmosphere by using direct speech, very short sentences, questions, exclamations, and vibrant vocabulary. Linking words, phrases. Time. Before, before long, when, as soon as, just as, the moment that, while, as, during, in the meantime, immediately, after, afterwards, after that, later, sometime later, soon, then, next, in the beginning, at first, in the end, finally, eventually, at last, until, by the time. Concession, contrast. Although, even though, in spite of, despite, however, no matter how, what, whatever, but, while, whereas, nevertheless, regardless of. Result, consequence. So, that, such, that, therefore, so, otherwise, for this reason, under the circumstances, consequently, as a consequence, as a result, cause, reason, because of, as, since, due to, owing to. Emphasis. In fact, as a matter of fact, actually, to tell you the truth, strangely enough. It was too good to be true. My heart was beating furiously. It was a sight for sore eyes. It made me jump. I couldn't believe my eyes or luck. I burst out laughing or into tears. As luck would have it, it was a real shock. It was getting on my nerves. It was the best or worst ever. I breathed a sigh of relief. I was in a good or bad mood. I was out of breath. I was left speechless. All of a sudden, or suddenly, the next thing I knew, I was taken by surprise. To my surprise, unfortunately, without a doubt, beyond any doubt, without thinking,